This is critical, but this has got 4 sides crimped. I have to come up with some crimp method. Probably kind of hard to see. This is the shift lever. It comes out of the transmission, goes to this bar, goes up into this mechanism, which transmits the cable here into the up-down motion it needs to shift. It comes straight up vertically and then goes forward from here. And about where the cab is mounted is where the cable would have gone up in front of the dash to work on the motorhome. But now it's going to be to the steering column up there. This is the shift lever on the transmission. I think it's in park right now. At least when it's pulled all the way forward, the shift lever up there was pulled all the way up. So I'm going to assume that's park, and I think it is, just the way it moves. So that's park. It would be reverse. Oh wait, that would be reverse, park, high, second, and low. That's as far as it goes. So it's first gear all the way forward is park. Now the total range of movement here is about 3 5/8 inches. And that would make sense because all this bracketry, that lever there is longer than the lever that goes forward to the cable. I couldn't figure out the ratio there. So I went ahead and measured what was up front on the steering column. And its motion is only 3 1/8 inches. And I can have the steering come up behind the steering column instead of in front of it, which is how it would have had to be pulling to go into gear or to go into park. And that gets the cable off the floorboards. That's what I'm going to try to attempt. So this push-pull cable, definitely too stiff. I can't bend it, and it doesn't work smoothly enough to use as a throttle cable. Anyways, in trying to retrofit it as a shift cable, here's the original shift cable, and it's a bit heavier duty, really hard to move, but that's okay. I'm not going to use it. These boots, I might try to find replacements and put on the end of these. Don't know how that's going to work. But really, I now have to adapt it to this bracket. This is the bracket that I had up underneath. And it used to be a push-pull. And I'll try to show pictures of what it used to look like. At least this part. This part here, this I've turned around. I cut it off, bend it around, and now it's on this side because this bracket, that bracket is now, it's a mirror image of itself. I've taken the pin out, I reversed the pin, I heated it up and made these bends to be the opposite of what they were. So now it's a pull-push. And I've ordered these, there it is. These little bushings, little nylon bushings. I couldn't find them in town. I didn't really give myself too much chance there. And I looked online. I didn't think I was going to find them there either. But once I found out that they're called sleeve bearings, nylon sleeve bearings, it changed the search engine just looking for the right thing. So now, as a result of all of that, instead of having the cable come down here and push-pull, now it's pull-push. And it's working in reverse. And that's what I needed it to do because I need to change the way the cable mounts inside underneath the dash. This one here, that used to be mounted to the firewall on the motorhome, and it operated in reverse of what I'm going to do. I can still use this piece and use it to lock in somehow. This piece here was clamped in using this little thing here. I'll take that out for now. And it was clamped onto that top part there. There's no way to do that with this cable. So I've got to figure out some way, and that's the adjustment as well. I've got to figure out some way to mount that here. That's the original end, and I thought I could just maybe push out a little fitting here, and it would just push out. There'd be a ring that slid out of there. No. This little thing was somehow, I don't know how they did it. I guess they put this little thing in there. They fed this cable up through it, then they somehow compressed that and stuck it inside this. So now all I've got is this here, but that's okay. I needed to do that anyway. And here's why. For me to latch to get this to fixed in here, I could have come up with a fancy little bracket, something to hold that in place. It's got to be both ways. You know, it had to be from both pushing and pulling. Well, I was kind of surprised that this piece comes off as well, which means I can take this piece off. What that allows me to do, this is the original clip that held this into there, about like that. Well, I'm not going to use this cable anymore, so I'm going to cut that here and here, slide that over the top of this piece, and that'll slide in there, and I can use little lock nuts to just lock this piece onto this piece, and it's good. I'm latched in. All I have to do is figure out what kind of ring to put on the end of that to go onto this little pin right there. Based on all my measurements, it's 7 3/4 to where this lever is at its farthest extension, or that is the cable's out as far as it's going to go. And that's what that lever looks like at the pulled back all the way. So based on that, the bottom of the tape here, that's where I have to cut this black cable. And I've drilled that out, that the end piece I've drilled out all the way to there. And so I'm going to run the cable in and try to crimp it somewhere up in this area, but I need to cut off about 1.5 inches. This is all going to be a bit hard to show. I can't really work one-handed. I can try to show some parts now because otherwise a lot of it will be out of the frame. What I want to show here is this is all the new cable here, and I've got some marks drawn. That slides all the way inside, and that's where it stops. That's its absolute stop. I'm going to give myself about 1/2 inch, which is that second mark. The full travel, which I'm going to call 3 3/8 inches, is right here. Well, that means a little bit inside the sleeve, the guide. Then it comes all the way out, and you can see the cable that's crimped in there. This is the cable, stretched out here along the bench, winds up inside here. This is all new cable to here. And in this part, it had the threaded part here, a little threaded part here, which I've threaded into the original clip, piece on the old original motorhome cable. And that uses this little clip to hold it in place. Then it had this guide, which kind of moves around. I ran into a problem here. I had this on the truck, mounted onto the truck. I thought that I could use this original piece that came off the original cable, crimp it onto here, and then any gap that was on this end, I could just use a filler or something to make sure it guided into this tube. It doesn't work that way. When this cable is out this far, and that's as far as it needs to go, it bends. It has a real strong bending moment right there. And that's why this was so long. This is the other end of that original cable. And you can see that it is that much longer. It needs all of that to go inside this tube so that it doesn't bend. Well, there's my problem. How do I make one of these to fit? No cable that I can buy is going to be 11 feet long with this end. I can't buy these ends, so I have to make it. I found a piece of wire out of this is a piece of rod, out of a refrigerator or an oven or something. It's chrome plated. But it was about the right diameter, just a little bit too big. And sadly, when I pushed that cable out, it didn't fit inside this tube, so I had to mill it down a little bit. This rod starts at 0.235 inches, and it needs to be 0.215 inches diameter. So just using a combination of file and an emery cloth in the drill press, spinning it, I got it down to the right diameter on this end. Good enough. So the last thing that meant that I had to do is I have to drill this hole on the end of it. That hole is, I don't know what size it is. I just compared this drill bit to the cable, and I've drilled that down in there now, so it's just about all the way. I'll continue with that. And that gives me a rod that has a hole in it that I can crimp on, but I'll have to do some blacksmithing because I still have to make that end. And that end, I'll just heat it up and forge it on my anvil, mash it flat, drill a hole. Should be good. Well, I'm going to call that a success. You can definitely tell which one's homemade, but I think I've successfully made a replacement. So the next question is, how do I simulate this 6-sided crimp? I can't just mash it flat because it's still got to fit inside this tube. Got to be low profile. What I have is this 1-inch thick, it's a portion of a counterweight off of an old beam pump. These weighed 140 pounds a piece, I think, when they were one piece. Anyways, it's 1-inch thick, and they look like this now. I just sliced it down the middle, and had a couple of bolts left over from when I bolted the frame together. Dead bug. And these are just things that are going to clamp on there. And I'm going to make myself a thing that will basically just hinge together, and I'll use I've got a hydraulic press over there that'll just, I don't know how much compression it's going to take, but this should be sufficient. I've been going back and forth. Do I drill a hole that's this OD and then just put wire in there to, make it smaller than that? Or do I drill the hole, whatever the diameter is, would be of these flats, and then remove material on this to make it 6-sided? That would be the neater solution. I don't know if I have the patience, because it means probably doing it with a file or a grinder in some way. I don't know. It might be a 2-part process where I drill a hole that's, I'm going to, drill a hole that's the whatever distance is between these flats, and then remove material, and then I'll have another hole that's a resizing to make sure it's no bigger than that, because it's a tight fit inside that tube. This work. If I was doing a dozen of these, I might want to do something different to keep these two pieces from sliding. But with one, I think I can make this work once. The other thing I have to do on this is this has got a slope to it where they'd crimped it before. This end is kind of squared off, but there wasn't a lot happening there. Anyways, I don't want a sharp edge because that can be a weak point. This plate is 1-inch thick, and that is 3/4 of an inch from there to there. So I'm just going to countersink 1/8 of an inch on top and bottom. That should be good. Okay, all I've done is I've cut some slots in the smaller one with the angle grinder, and I've got my sample end that I can't use, too short, and a sample bit of wire. Line that up, and let's see how this works. The other thing I have to worry about, well, it hardly did anything. It didn't do a thing. Okay. What does that mean? Anyways, I have to make sure that I don't bend this. All right, what have I done? What's wrong here? Why doesn't that work? This is take 2. I've, where I cut slots in the smaller hole, I just laid wires in them. And I don't know if that's going to work, but we're going to give it a try. As far as it's going to go. I can see it's opened up a gap on this end. So it's just some gap, and there's some give in these brackets. Well, it crimped, but it more or less crushed it flat more than anything. So what I'd have to do then is go into the second hole. Let's resize it in this one. Well, that ain't gonna do nothing. It's already that size. Huh. See if it fits inside that tube. No, it doesn't fit in there. So I have to do something else about resizing. My theory on drilling the right size hole doesn't do anything. It just doesn't even touch the sides. That is interesting. All right, but at least I can crimp. I can crimp, and that should do. Let me just do a test in the vise. I think that'll work. Can't pull it out, so it crimps well enough. Just got to get back to size. My brilliant idea of making this press was a failure. It sort of deformed it. I mean, I sort of crimped it, but not well enough. So for whatever reason, I think it's because I just couldn't apply enough pressure to it. It takes a lot of pressure. That's a 20-ton jack over there, and it even with this leverage, things were, flexing a bit. Just wasn't enough. I've taken this cold chisel and I just rounded the tip off. I don't think the camera's focusing, but anyways, it's rounded off. All the edges are rounded. Should be okay. If I can just smack this in, I guess, 4 places, it should be enough. I'm using this as a die just so it doesn't flatten it out. I'll probably still have to make it round again because this tube is a pretty tight fit, and I'll probably have to use some file and a emery cloth to make it the right size again. Stuff doesn't mold very well. It's obviously wire, but okay. No, it actually still fits too. Have to file it a little bit because it's kind of stiff, but yeah, just a little bit of fine tuning and it'll slip in and out of this tube just all right. Well, let's put this together and then we'll stab it inside the truck and see if I can get it to go through a whole shifting sequence. I should never have to go that far because that's hyperextending right there. Hopefully I should be able to adjust it using this to get it in and out. Yes, that's first. Second. I think I went through drive. That's drive. Neutral. Reverse. Park. I think it works. Boy, that's very close to hitting, but it doesn't, so we're okay. Once I get the brace put back on here, that'll be nice and stable. think I'll do that now. Yay, works. Park low. We're good. I am so pleased with that. That will work. Now I'm going to have to route this cable up behind this panel and come down using this as a, that's got to be tied there, and that has to go onto this. Oh my gosh, how am I going to do that? And it's got to be, well, that's great. Looks like this rod is going to have to go straight through this bracket. Okay, so the bracket has to be changed. No worries, it had too much side play anyway. But that's for the next episode. Thanks for sticking with me so far. If you like this video, please subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.